The universe isn't just a bunch of stuff, some rocks floating around in emptiness. The universe is collectively joined. Everything is connected. The universe isn't multiple spirits, it's one spirit that's in everything and in everywhere. So, let's just go with the big deep questions. What is life? What's life all about? What are the stories that you're telling yourself about your life? What life mantras are you repeating to yourself? As we go on throughout today and tomorrow, we're going to be unraveling some of these questions. What I'm going to be presenting to you in today's session is an idea that your perspective on what is life determines your experience of life. The way you look at life is impacting what life does to you. Your perspective determines everything about your life and how you interact with it, how you feel about it, the emotions that you go through, the thoughts that you have, the reactions that come up when things happen, and even the relationships that you have with other people. Your perspective on life. And I think we've got it all wrong. I think that all the problems that you have in life are based on one thing: your understanding of what life is, the way you think life is. And I think most of the people in this room think, I know what life is. I've lived it long enough. I can see a couple of grey hairs like me around the room. I've got life experience. Yeah, I won't look on the side where the ladies are sitting. There's no grey hairs, no grey hairs. But all problems come from how you look at life. And I'm going to propose that the way you're looking at life is completely wrong. I hope I'm allowed to do that. And today, we're going to be unfolding and discovering some delusions that you might have about life. And specifically delusions about life, about God, about you. I don't think you know who you are. I don't think you understand who you are. And I can say that because I was in the same position. And I can say that because I am in the same position. And I don't think we understand the world around us. And the way that we're taught about life can be summarized into a simple idea. Since childhood, we've always been taught that there are two entities that concern you. And those two entities are you and then everything else. And that's pretty much how we live our life. There's me, my story, my life, everything that's happening to me, about me. There are other people, but they're not as significant. Right now, this is important, me. And that's how we've been brought up. There's the yourself, the stuff that I can control. I can control how I look, what I do with my day, the kind of things that I think about, the things that I choose to do and don't do. I can control this stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff happening which I don't really have any control over. That's how we think. But my question to you is that the best way of looking at life? And I don't think that we've been given a choice before. You say, what do you mean? Of course, that's the only way of looking at life. Surely there's me and then there's other stuff. Yeah? Well, maybe there's another way of looking at life. What is your relationship with the universe? And to understand this, we need to go on a journey of self-discovery. This is how most of us live. We live in a bubble called me, myself. And this is not unique to you. This is a way that we've been conditioned to think. We've been conditioned to think in this way, and this is one of the perspectives we have on life. This is how most people think today. There's me. I'm separate from everything. What I do with my life is up to me, and what I do with my life is quite important. It's important that I do the right things in my life. The universe is just a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't really have any purpose. There's no meaning here. So it's up to me to find my own meaning in life. Yeah, I've got to find out what's the purpose of my life. Anyone been on some of these life development courses? Watched all these YouTube videos? It's all about finding your purpose in life. Yeah? It's up to you to find your purpose in life. And in this way of thinking, there's a me. As a body, as a mind, as a soul, I control my own life. Sound familiar? This is how everyone walks around in the world. In fact, there's probably a slightly more refined version of this diagram that we can say how people walk around in the whole world. Some people who are slightly more conscious might walk around in this way. Actually, I'm not the center of the universe, but I'm still here. There's me. There's a consciousness, there's a spirit inside me, there's a soul, there's a life inside me, and everything else is just blank and empty. I'm separate from everything and everyone. My life doesn't really have any purpose. Have you ever seen those videos where you see like the camera zoomed into a person and then it zooms out and then it shows the town they're in and then it shows the country and then it zooms out and it shows the planet and think, oh, I'm nothing. And then it zooms out even more and it shows all the planets. Then it shows the sun and then it shows our sun, how small it is. And then there's a huge sun and there's like, that's the next smallest sun. And then there's another one which is a trillion times bigger than that. Have you ever seen those kind of videos? What does that make you feel? It makes you feel empty, like, oh, like what am I worried about? So this is what I mean. There's a way of thinking about your whole life, and then there's a slightly more conscious way of thinking, actually, if you look at the big picture, there's nothing really important in my life. So because there's nothing really important in my life, I'm just here to live my life, the whole purpose of my life is just find ways to keep me entertained. Just find ways to be happy in life. Keep busy and be happy. But I control my own life. I still got to find ways to do these things. So that's another way of looking at life. There's another perspective of life. And that involves a sky daddy, spirit, something far away. I love that word, sky daddy. Some sort of Babaji, the kind of stories you tell your little kids, yeah? Oh, don't do this, other Babaji will be angry. Yeah? Which Babaji? Oh, the one in the photo over there. That guy. Yeah? So there's something bigger out there. Yeah? These guys, atheists, there's nothing out there. These guys, religious. Yeah, there's something there, I don't know what it is. I'm separate from it. There's something there, but it's really far away. But the big spirit being, seems to have some control over my life. These guys, nope, I control my whole life. Yeah? But these guys who believe in a spirit of some sort, the spirit has some control. It's doing some stuff. The super spirit, life is controlled by some super spirit being. And in some way, the super spirit is connected to me. I have a spirit, and there is some other big spirit out there, and we're somehow connected. I can control some parts of my life, and the big spirit controls some parts of my life. Maybe it controls all the big stuff, like when I'm going to die and how many kids I'm going to have and who I'm going to marry, But I control all the everyday stuff. Like if I wake up in the morning, I decide if I want to make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. That's my decision. But the Sky Daddy controls the big stuff. Sound familiar? And because there's this big spirit, I've got to do stuff to make sure that the big spirit doesn't get angry at me. I've got to do the right stuff. I can't do the wrong stuff. The people who don't believe in the big spirit, they're so lucky. They can just do whatever they want. But I've got a responsibility, so I need to make sure that I'm doing all the right things. Otherwise, there may be consequences. Sounding familiar? But there's another way of looking at life. And these are all methods that have come over time. I call this the dynastic, hierarchical society philosophy. There used to be a time, and there still is, where you're not allowed to be connected to the big Sky Daddy. You have to go through a special person, a spiritually enlightened. Somebody else is connected. You've got no power to be connected. You've got to go through that. In the old days, it used to be the king. The king was seen as a manifestation of God. And you can see that in various cultures even today. But certainly like Greek societies and things like that. So, you had no power, and you had to do whatever the king told you to do because they were connected. And even now, we have a bit of that way of thinking. Some people follow some sort of spiritual gurus, masters, spiritually enlightened people. They're the ones who will tell us what to do. So that's another way of looking at life. I have no spiritual connection. The spiritual connection only comes from someone more superior than me, more spiritually connected than me. So I have to obey the orders.
Have you found that spiritual teachings are great to learn, but not always easy to apply to your own life? Sometimes we all need a bit of support and guidance from people who know what we're going through and can help us find some answers. The Nanak Naam Facebook group helps you do just that. It's an online community where you can ask any questions about life and get answers from other members of the group. Search for Nanak Naam Community Support and join our free Facebook group today.
So we end up with a lot of different options about how to look at life. Some of them involve some sort of God thing. Some of them don't involve a God. And more often than not, what we're seeing now is the younger generations are choosing to look at life without the God. Yeah? I can share with you that when I've traveled around, I've come across youngsters by the age of 13 who are convinced there's no God. 13 years old. And where I've come across some of these is in Sikh camps. I used to make a habit of going to the Sikh camps, and I said, put me with the teenagers. I want to speak to the teenagers. And I would start my conversation with this. I'd say, don't worry about all the group leaders and the mummies and the daddies and the uncles that are here. Let's have an honest conversation. I said, before I say anything, a show of hands, how many people in this room can tell me that they don't believe in a God? And this is a group of 12, 13, 14-year-olds. More than half of them in the room put their hands up. Why that's really scary is for parents like me, how little time you actually have to share anything with them. Because by the age of about 12 or 13, they're done. They're like, I tried the God thing, it didn't work. I'm just going to do the Instagram thing. Yeah? I'm just going to do the Facebook thing. Because my other friends, they don't seem to need the God thing, and they're doing all right with life. And the kind of questions that they have, we can't answer. Because we used to teach them stuff like this, that said, you got to pray to God, you got to do your prayers, because Babaji will be happy with you. And what they're seeing is, Mum, Dad, I did all that stuff that you told me, but all of my friends seem to be fine. They don't need to do any of this stuff, and they're fine. In fact, they're getting good jobs. They're getting on with life. There's no issues. So why did you waste all of my time? And we don't have any answers. And so we now are in a situation where our parents are saying, "Sawal nahi puchida hunda." Don't ask questions. We never asked questions, and we were fine. Yeah, sound familiar? This stuff isn't going to work anymore. That stuff isn't going to answer anyone's questions anymore. So we got to really start asking ourselves, what is this God thing? What are we actually talking about? What do we mean by God? Whose God are we talking about? Are all the conversations of God around the world talking about the same one? Is the Christian God the same as the Muslim God? Is the Muslim God the same as the Hindu gods? I'm confused. I thought Hindus had thousands of gods. And then the Sikhs, we don't know. Are we Indians? Are we Hindus? Are we monotheistic? Are we polytheistic? Which God? What are we talking about? Whose definition of God are we talking about? What do you mean by God? Most of the time, if we're honest, most of the time when we talk about God, what we mean is some sort of father figure. Some sort of sky daddy. Male, generally, we talk about God in a masculine way, except for the feminists. God is a she. God is definitely a female. So, sitting somewhere far away, usually in the clouds, with a white beard, white clothes, white skin. Which God? Or does our God tie a turban? Which one? Because we don't have the answers to these questions, every generation is getting more and more confused. And people then ask our kids, don't you have 10 gods? Yeah, I think we have 10 gods. Because they're confused, they don't know. Who are the gurus? Are they gods? Doesn't make any sense. What are we talking about? So this God, whatever it is somewhere far away, and he really cares about what human beings are doing. There's the whole universe that he's got to look after. But these little human beings, one species on one tiny little planet, he really cares what they do. He's watching you. He's looking after you. He's checking. Oh, are you doing that? Oh, are you doing prayers? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Yeah? Can I tell you who that sounds like to me? He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. Sounds like Santa Claus. Old man with a white beard. What have we done to God? We've made him Father Christmas. It's almost the same thing. There's some guy who's watching. You better do the good stuff. Is that what life is all about? The reason I don't like that God, I call him Mr. God, that guy. The reason I don't like that is because he sounds too much like a human being. It's just too similar. Everyone says God has made man in his own image. But maybe man has made God in his own image. We don't see God with 2 heads and a tail. He looks a bit like a human. So what God are we actually talking about? So you've seen all the different ways of looking at life, and I'm here to present to you what I think is a different way of looking at life. And I'm here to present to you this view of life. This perception of life can be seen in every pagan and every tribal culture around the world throughout time. Every indigenous tribe has this view of life. That you and the life the spirit, the energy of life are indistinguishable. That there isn't some spirit somewhere else, it's everywhere. It's throughout the universe. It's in matter and in non-matter. The universe isn't just a bunch of stuff, some rocks floating around in emptiness. The universe is collectively joined. Everything is connected. The universe isn't multiple spirits, it's one spirit that's in everything and in everywhere. There is a single spirit-based entity, and you and it cannot be separated. You cannot separate yourself from this spirit. So what we're talking about is at the heart of everything that you can see, everything that you can feel, everything that you can touch, everything that you can smell. At the heart of it all is just one thing. There is an essence, an intangible beingness to everything. And it's everywhere. And it cannot go anywhere. Creation changes, but there's something underneath creation that doesn't change. And it's very hard to put a word to what this is. And we can try to use some words that give a sense of what this means. Non-dualism is one word. What do I mean by that? Duality is the notion that me and you are separate. I'm not connected to you in any way. Me and you are two individual, separate beings. Duality, dual. Non-duality, that there is no difference between you and me. And there are many different ways of talking about this, many different theories, many different ideas. You can look up things like panentheism, panpsychism, animism. Look at all of these different things. They're all different ways of describing it. So what are we talking about? Let's go back to you, because this isn't a science lesson and this isn't a philosophy lesson. This is a you-ology lesson. It's about you. That's my patent, by the way, yeah? You-ology. What we're talking about is, over time, man has tried to create a way of describing this essence. And we've given it names like God. We've tried to describe it. It's everywhere. It's everything. It controls everything. And over time, the ideas have spread out and branched out. And people's definitions of these things have changed. But I don't want you to have an idea. I don't care about your ideas. Nobody has a monopoly on this God thing. The oldest description is called Brahman, and it appears in the Vedas, which is why I said that this knowledge is at least 10,000 years old. The oldest description, the first human beings to start talking about this, come from India. Pretty good, huh? If anyone remembers the old Goodness Gracious Me, my favorite sketch, the uncle who would just say, Indian, everything, Indian. This genuinely is. Yeah? And what it's talking about is that there is an essence of reality. There's something here for everyone. It's a life force. It's primal. How have these Indian spiritual masters talked about this thing? Look at some of the words that they've used to describe it. The most complete definition is using words Sat, Chit, Anand. One word made up of three small words. Sat, Chit, Anand. We can translate those to constant, conscious, and content. Sat, Chit, Anand. This thing that we're talking about is constant. It will never go anywhere. It can't go anywhere. It's everywhere. It's awake, Chit. It's alive. And it's pretty happy. Anand. Content, blissful. So at the root of all reality, there is something inside rocks, inside trees, inside insects, inside animals, inside plants, inside you, inside me. There's something that is constant, conscious, and content. Here are some of the other descriptions that we come across in Gurmat. It is nirup. It doesn't actually have one shape, no one form. It is avinash. It is indestructible. It is nirgun. It doesn't really have any qualities, but it is also sargun. It has all qualities. And it's veparva. It's carefree. It doesn't have any worries. Remember, we're not talking about a sky daddy here. Remember, what we're talking about is you. At the essence of what you are, there is something that is formless. There is something that is carefree. There is a happiness inside every single one of us. It isn't just happiness, it's content. It's utter, supreme bliss inside you. And what is inside you isn't unique to you. It's inside everyone. Sounds good, right? Good theory. Makes sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. How do we know that this is actually true? Dharminder, can we get the mic? How do we know that this is actually true? How did those visionaries, those enlightened beings, I like to call them contemplatives, the ones who contemplated themselves, the self-reflectors, the transcendentalists, how did they discover this stuff? How did they come to this conclusion? And how do we know it's true? This idea is not unique to one culture or one group of people or one moment in time. This same idea has always been around. The same concept has appeared throughout mankind's history. And here are some examples. The Bhagavad Gita. He who experiences the unity of life sees his own self in all beings and all beings in his own self, and looks on everything with an impartial eye. The New Testament of the Bible. One God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. Lao Tzu, Chinese philosopher. Why do you run around looking for the truth? Be still. And there it is. In the mountains, in the pine trees, and in yourself. Every culture has known this. In the Guru Granth Sahib, a saint, a spiritually enlightened master known as Bhagat Kabir, he says, first there was the divine light that formed all beings of nature. From this one light, the entire universe has sprouted. So who is good and who is bad? People, don't be mistaken by a delusion. The Creator, the created, and the creation is within itself. It's permeating in all places. From one clay, many different forms have been made. And every single thing that has been made is perfect. Nothing that has been made is imperfect. That includes you. There is nothing about you that is imperfect. By recognizing the oneness, the divine will, by recognizing the divine will, the oneness is known. So I want you to try and picture this analogy. The way you and me walk around in life is as though we are completely separate from everyone. And the people who've understood this are sitting there baffled by how we look at life. Because they're saying, don't you understand? You are not separate from life the way a wave is not separate from an ocean. You and me are like waves in an ocean. What does a wave do? A wave is in the ocean, and for just 1 second it comes up and it says, hey, look at me. And then it goes back down again. And that's your entire life. That one moment of coming out of the wave, waving to everyone, and going back in again. That's your life. Now, my question to you is, at what point does the wave ever become separate from the ocean? It's never separated from the ocean. At what point did you become separated from life? You know what we do? We come up, we look around, we're like, oh, where's the ocean? And then we go back into it. And you and me, we go on our spiritual journeys to try and find this oneness, when we have not understood that it's here. It's within us. You and it are the same thing. Am I just making this up? Let's see what Guru Nanak says. Guru Nanak takes the example of a drop of water in the ocean. How many of you have ever heard this analogy? And it's quite an incorrect analogy that's used of Sikhi and religion in general and spirituality in general. I've heard this analogy being used. Sikhi is like you are a drop of water that is trying to find its way back into the ocean. Have you ever heard that analogy? Trying to find your way back into the ocean. You've got lost, you're out of the way. And somehow if you listen to the right people, you'll find your way back to the ocean. Guru Nanak doesn't agree with that way of looking at life. He says, Sagar meh boond, boond meh sagar, kavan bujhe bid jane. He says that you are a drop of water in the ocean. You never left the ocean. You just don't know that you're in the ocean. You are in the ocean and the ocean is in you. And only a few people have been able to understand this. Kavan bujhe. Who knows this? Who understands this? Who actually gets it? That you are in the ocean of life. This God thing that you're looking for, you're in it. It's not far away from you. You're in it and it's in you. When the wave believes itself to be a wave, then it has many questions. Who am I? What is life? What's the meaning of life? What am I here to do? But when the wave understands that it's part of the ocean, all the questions disappear. Because you see it, because you get it. Let's look at some more examples. Guru Nanak Dev Ji again. Guru Nanak Dev Ji gives a beautiful example. I want you to picture this. There's a man on his boat and he's gone fishing. He's sitting on his fishing boat, waiting for a while, and he casts a net and he throws a big net out and he's waiting to catch the whole bunch of fish. Guru Nanak Dev Ji looks at that in a slightly different way to how you and me may look at that. We may say there's a fisherman and he's gone fishing and he's trying to catch some fish. Guru Nanak Dev Ji sees it like this. Guruji says, Ape machi machali ape pani jal, ape jal manakana ape andar lal. Guruji is looking at this and he says, I see what this is. It says this oneness is the fisherman, this oneness is the boat, this oneness is the water, this oneness is the fish, this oneness is the net, this oneness is the bait. Look at the way that Guru Nanak is choosing. Look at his perspective on life. Look at our perspective on life. This perspective of life doesn't allow you to hate that person. Because you could hate that person if you say, that guy's a bad guy, he's a fisherman, maybe he's killing animals, or maybe he's doing this or he's doing that. Guru Nanak's way says, Nirvair, I cannot hate you because you and me are the same thing. There are so many more examples. Bhagat Namdev Ji, not from the Sikh tradition, but somebody who understood this. So the writings of Bhagat Namdev are in this enlightenment manual called the Guru Granth Sahib. Asa Bani Sri Namdev Ji ki. Bhagat Ji says, Ek anek byapak purak jat dekhon tat soi. Everywhere I can see many things, but I can see them all as one thing. But sometimes I forget. He says, everything looks so colorful, everything looks so beautiful, everything looks so different that sometimes I forget. Because man looks different to woman. Plant looks different to tree. Insect looks different to elephant. They all look so different that sometimes I get a bit confused. It's so easy to be confused because everything is so colorful, it looks so different and magnificent that it's confusing us because we see the difference in things. But how does Bhagat Namdev Ji see it? He says, Sab gobind hai, sab gobind hai, gobind bin nahi koi. Everything is this oneness. Everything is this oneness. There is nothing but the oneness that I see. So what is the Gurmat way of looking at life? What is our perspective of life? Do you remember all the circles? Which one did you associate with? Which one was a bit like your life? The one with the self in the middle? The one with the self and the big spirit in the sky? Which one was yours? Which perspective have you been living with your whole life, not realizing that that's the cause of your problems? And what is the new perspective that you could be living with? The Gurmat view of life starts at the very beginning of the Guru Granth Sahib. Ik Oankar, there is oneness. How many times have you looked in your translations and Ik Oankar, there is one God? That guy, right? The guy in the sky. That's not what Ik Oankar is. That's not what Guru Nanak came to share with the world. He came to share the idea of oneness, Ik, and he starts his entire teaching with the message that there is one essence of reality and you and me are all equally part of it. There's a new way of looking at life. And it doesn't mean there is one God, because one God is that guy with the white beard. What he's presenting is non-duality, that there isn't two things. How many people do we think we have in the room today? We have about 80 people here. You and me look at the room and we say, there's 80 people in the room. The Gurmat way of looking at life is there's only one thing here. It looks like 80 different things, different heights, different shapes, different colors and sizes. But there is only one thing here. There isn't a you and there isn't a me. Good idea, sounds good, but what does it mean for me? What do I do with this? How is it going to change my life as soon as I walk out the door? What this idea means is that you are a part of something. You are connected in a way that you don't understand. But you don't feel it. We don't feel this oneness. We feel separated. I feel like a me. I don't feel like all of you guys. I feel like me. You guys feel like you. So what's going on? The spiritual masters, it's good for them to say, hey, we're all connected, guys. Say, hey, but I don't feel it. Tell me what I need to do. I like the idea, what do I do about it? There's something that's separating us. And we live our whole lives within this bubble of separation. You and me are separate. And we accept that. Yeah, we're separate. Of course, I'm not that guy. I'm not this guy. I'm me. I'm not separate from you. What do you mean? So we have to now start understanding, how do we get to this? How do we get to this realization that you and me are the same thing? You and me are the same thing. In fact, there is no you and there is no me. No one is my friend. No one is my enemy. This is the message of the Guru. Na ko bairi, nahi begana. No one is a stranger. No one is an enemy. Sagal sang hamko bane aaye. I have found a way to be a friend of everything, of everyone. Everyone is part of me. So let's ask some real questions. Is this true? What do you mean I'm connected to God? What do you mean I am God? You are God. Take a moment to let that sink in. You are God. But your question is going to be, nah, how can I be God? I know the stuff that goes on in here, and it ain't very godly. I know the kind of stuff I think about. I know the kind of words I say. I know I can be a terrible guy sometimes. It doesn't sound very godly to me. How can I be God? God does all the good stuff. God is all pure. God is all peaceful. I'm not pure. I'm not peaceful. This stuff doesn't make sense. It's a nice idea. I'm bad. I'm the bad guy. God is the good stuff. Yeah? At least in Christianity, they've segregated it quite nicely. The good God, and then the bad God, he does all the bad stuff, Satan, the devil. We don't even have a bad God. So we're stuck. We're like, well, I'm the bad guy then. We make ourselves the Satan, right? Because we don't have a bad God. We only have a good God. So what's all the bad stuff? Who does all the bad stuff? Guru Nanak Dev Ji is presenting an idea that you plus you plus you plus you plus you equals 1. Remember this. 1 plus 1 equals 1. That's what Guru Nanak is here to present. That everything is only 1. We talk about 1 being a prime number. I'm teaching this stuff to my 8-year-old at the moment about prime numbers and things like that, but it works for us as well. Yeah? Everything comes back to this 1 number. So where is this God? Show me. If I'm God, if you're God, where is it? Where is all this stuff? There's a really interesting concept that the Buddhists have come up with. They say that trying to understand this God thing is like trying to explain fish about water. Trying to explain it to them, what is water? So what's happening? 2 fish are swimming along. And one is saying to this other fish, hey, how's it going? How's you having a nice day? Having a good day? Yep, they're all talking to each other. An old wise fish swims by and says, good morning, boys. How's the water? And the 2 little fish are saying, what's water? What's he talking about? It's like one fish going up to another fish and saying, have you heard about this water thing? Everyone says, yeah, I've heard about this water thing. Apparently it's everywhere. Oh, but we can't see it. Oh, it's probably not real. Trying to understand this oneness is like trying to explain water to a fish. It can't get it because it's in water. It's made of water. Water is inside it. Water is outside it. Every time it opens its eyes, all it sees is water. When it opens its mouth, all that comes in is water. That's why you and me can't understand this oneness. Because it's so intrinsic to you. It's so close to you that it's almost invisible. So I'll ask you a question. Ask the fish, if he goes on his spiritual journey and he goes to the old fish Baba, oh, grand high fish, I'd like to know what water is. Show me the water, I'm here to find water. And the grand old fish says to him, show me where there isn't any water. If you want to go on a journey to find God, ask yourself this one question. Show me where there isn't God. God is a complicated word. Let's use another word. Universe. I don't like the word God. It's that guy. So I don't use the word God. I use the word universe. I want to connect with the universe. If you want to find your place in the universe, show me where the universe is. Is the universe here? Oh yeah. Let's take another word. Is the universe a difficult word? Let's use another word. What about life? Where's life? Have you got life inside you? Do you have life? Is life in this room right now? Say, yeah, of course it is. Life is everywhere. Is the same life inside you that is inside everyone else? Yeah, it is. Yeah. But what about God? Oh yeah, he's that guy. He's far away. The word God has stopped you. The word God has confused all of us because we're looking for a guy, Mr. God. But if you change the terminology, all of a sudden your understanding's like, oh yeah, life is everywhere. It's in everything. It's everywhere. Take a few moments to process it. We've got some time for some questions, and then we're going to go into the next talk. Have you got any questions right now specifically around this idea of oneness? If there are any questions that are unrelated, we'll save them, write them down, use them for some other parts. This oneness is inside you, is a part of you. First of all, let's ask this question. Do you like this idea? Because some people might not like the idea because it makes God a bit too close. It's like, oh, now I've got to behave, right? Because it was all right when God was far away, because then I can pretend to be one guy in front of other people, and when I go to the church or the temple or the Gurdwara, I can be all high and mighty. But within my own self, within my own mind, what am I really like? It's not nice to have a God so close. It's like, hey, give me some personal space. You know? I always explain to my little kids, like the two boys are always wrestling with each other. I say, you've got to have like personal space. It's like about this much, which is like a distance where you don't like anyone getting too close. Like if strangers come within your personal space, it's like it's a bit too close. You let your loved ones in, but what about something that's inside you? What's about something that's intrinsic to you? It's like, well, I don't know. Do you like this God thing? Do you want it to be there? Should we not call it God anymore? Does it change just by changing the word? Can it be that simple? What do you guys think?
A recent study has shown that over 75% of Sikhs say that their life feels stressful or overwhelming. These feelings can develop into depression, alcohol abuse, or even suicide. We believe that Guru Nanak's wisdom can help transform people's lives. Nanak Naam relies on your donation to help create more videos and podcasts like this to educate people all over the world on how to use Guru Nanak's teachings to improve their emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. Set up a monthly donation today and help change someone's life. Visit nanaknaam.org/donate.
The relationship that you choose to have with this oneness is up to you. You can choose to have a relationship with this oneness as though it's you. You can choose to have a relationship as though it's a lover. It's so close to you, it's intrinsic, it's part of you, I love you. You can choose to have a relationship with this oneness as though it is bigger than you. As soon as this oneness is bigger than you, then it's like, okay, you're bigger, this is what we have, the relationship with our Father. The father figure is the bigger, the stronger, the dominant, the control, not in a bad way, but you're in control. You've got more wisdom, you've got more experience in your life. So you can choose how you deal with this oneness, but it doesn't have to be separate from you. It can be a part of you, but if you keep it a part of you, if you say, oh, the God is my soul, then it's like here, then it's close to you. But just for a moment, understand that it's everything in this room. It is not responsible just for your breathing, it's responsible for every single person's breathing right now. It's looking after more than just you, it's looking after everything. It's not just responsible for your breathing, it's responsible for the very motion of the universe. It's the same thing that's making the earth spin. It's the same thing that's making the planets move around the sun. It's the same thing that's making the Milky Way move. It's the same thing that's making every single cell in your body function. It's the same thing that makes every single atom inside every single cell rotate. Proton, neutron, electron, it's moving, it's alive. It's everywhere. You're breathing it out, you're breathing it back in. So it's okay to have different relationships, and that's where it starts to become personal with you. My relationship with it is in this way, your relationship is in that way. And you can see this in Gurbani. The word Gurbani means the Guru's language. The words of these spiritually enlightened people. They use different language. They use words like, you are my mother, you are my father, you are my brother, you are my relative. In other places, it uses it as, you are my lover. We make love together because we're so connected with each other. So you can have different relationships with it. Please.
I just wanted to ask that, you know how you say all this oneness, is that more when you study Gurbani more? Because I feel that...
Is what more? Sorry, is what more?
You know how you're saying the oneness is in you?
Yes.
That we're, you know, in us. Is that more, you've got to study Gurbani more to feel like that?
So how do you get to it? Yes, absolutely. Over the course of the next 2 days, we're going to be very specifically breaking down how you get to it. What are the barriers? What are the things that's stopping you? What are the reasons why you don't get to it? This ain't going to come to you by reading more books. This is going to come to you by reading yourself. And you have to learn to read and know and understand yourself, understand your thought processes. Because if it's inside you, no book is going to get to that bit. It's there. So if you take Gurbani as not just the more I read it, the more I'll get it, it's the more I follow what the teacher is saying and start doing that stuff, learning that way, practicing it, thinking in a new way, stopping myself from thinking in certain ways. So yes, the Guru is needed. The Guru is the teacher. That's where the wisdom is contained. But it isn't just about reading it. It's like saying, am I going to be able to bake a cake by reading the recipe? You're not, right? You got to read the recipe, but then you got to do it. So it's a two-step process. You got to first take it in. Look, it comes down to certain things. First and foremost, let's just answer something very straightforward. Why are you going to read it? You're going to read it because you trust that the thing that you're reading is genuinely true. Like if you're going to bake a cake, you're going to read the recipe. Let's say you've never baked a cake before. You're trusting the fact that the guy who's written the recipe book has baked a cake before. right? You hope that they've done that before. And you hope that all these ingredients and all these steps, when you do it in the right way, leads to that end. So first and foremost, ask yourself this question: do I believe the gurus? And that's a matter of faith. You believe them just as much as you believe the guy who's made the recipe book. Because if you've not done it before, you've got to put your faith. There's a little bit of trust involved that says, I'm going to give this a go. You read it and then you practice it. So yes, you do have to follow a guide. You do need to follow others who've walked this path. You need to hang around with other people who are also doing it and saying, hey, did you try that? I tried that step, it didn't work. Like, what did you do in that step? They say, oh yeah, you forgot to put this in, or you've got to do that bit in. So there are multiple steps involved. But this isn't exclusive to Gurbani. This wisdom has been around before. What the gurus have done have really beautifully refined it in such an amazing way that makes it a lot easier for us to understand. Yeah? I'm not of the view that the Sikhs are the only ones who know this stuff. Yeah? I know that that's not a popular view. Other people have a different view. I'm not of that view. Yeah? And certainly when you read a little bit outside, you see that very similar concept have come up in different places, which is why I gave you the examples of the Bhagavad Gita and Lao Tzu and places like that. But you have to also know how to read Gurbani. And this is where the work that we're doing with this charity is to try and bring a different perspective on how people are reading Gurbani. Because to be fair, people have been reading Gurbani for a long time, but you don't hear these kinds of things. So something has changed over time. Now, I'm not in any way saying that I've got all the answers. In fact, I openly say it's safe for you to assume that I'm wrong, and you go and check it out. But if you are going to read Gurbani, what I'm saying is read it with this lens on. Wear this particular lens, and what I say is first understand oneness as an idea. Ik Onkar. Guru Granth Sahib starts with Ik Onkar. Understand Ik Onkar before you read the rest. If you don't understand Ik Onkar, if you understand Ik Onkar as there is one God, the whole of Guru Granth Sahib is going to sound like it's talking about some guy. When you understand Ik Onkar from the perspective of there is a oneness, it changes how you understand the whole of it. So it's important to even know how to start. Yeah? It's very important. Otherwise you're reading a recipe book and saying, what's an oven? What's flour? I have no idea what these words mean, so I'll just carry on reading it and hopefully a cake will show up one day. It doesn't work. You got to know how to read these things. You got to know how to approach them.
So you always talk about oneness. It's also when we refer to energy. When we say this like, around certain people and we feel positive and negative, it's our own perception of positive and negative.
We're going to go on to good and bad in tomorrow's lecture. We're going to go into it in a lot of detail. In terms of energy, this is something that I'm a little bit critical of people who start their spiritual journeys. People who start their spiritual journeys very quickly start talking about energies. They walk into a room, they say, I don't like the energy in this room. And the reason they do that is because they want to convince themselves, I can feel energies. I can feel it. I'm spiritual now. I can feel energies now. Yeah, I don't like the energy of this person. What they're really doing is they're changing the word of how they see and how they perceive things by saying, oh no, it's nothing to do with me. It's not that I don't like the look of this person. They've got a bad energy. I'm pure energy. So I can pick up on negative energies. And I'm a little bit critical of people who are very, very quick to start talking about energies. I don't deny that people can sense energies. Who am I to deny anything? What do I know? But I am a little bit critical of people who are like, hey, I don't like the energy. You're not giving me a good energy. What that really means is I don't feel good when I'm in your presence. I don't feel good when I'm in the presence of this room. But because I don't want to acknowledge that, I'm going to blame you guys. I'm going to blame the room. The room has a bad energy. So I'm a little bit critical of these whole energies things. But that's just me. And certain things I'm going to share with you over the next 2 days is just how I see life. Yeah? It's not right, it's not wrong. But hey, I'm the one with the mic. Any more questions? One more. Have we got time for one more? Jaspal? Have we got time for one more?
Very quick.
One last question, and then we'll have some more questions there, but we'll have more time for questions. Quick question at the back.
I've at times feel like I've felt the oneness, especially when doing breathing exercises.
Yes.
It's almost as if I'm high.
Yep.
But then I have to wake up.
Yes.
It's as if I'm kind of woken, and I wake up to the reality of it.
Yes.
And I don't know what I'd like to do to stick to that.
Brilliant. Wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? So we're going to cover that. Keep that question in mind. I want to answer specific questions at specific times because certain things require a little bit more detail, a little bit more understanding in order to say, well, how do we move into that space? But yeah, absolutely keep that question in mind. We're going to be looking at that. But if we look at what we've talked about today, let's not make oneness an experience of being high, but let's make it a choice as of right now. From this moment on, even as you go out into your break now, can you make a choice that I'm going to look at everything from a oneness? And I'll leave you with one story. There's a very enlightened old man sitting on the side of a road, and he's visibly hungry. He hasn't eaten for days. A rich person walks past him very arrogantly, sees that he's hungry, and throws him a piece of bread. The old man takes the piece of bread and feeds it to a stray dog. The rich man walks past him and says, "You fool, I gave that bread to you. Why aren't you eating it?" And the old man says, "God is feeding God and God is laughing at God." It's a choice. It's a way that you choose to look at life.